country is terrifying, so when I was 16, I decided it was time to find a way out. I couldn't live there any longer. The first time I tried, I applied for a French visa so that I could then cross to the UK and seek asylum. But they said I was too young. So I had a new plan. I applied for a visa to enter Russia. Then I had to wait in Russia to find the way to Latvia. While we waited, we lived in an abandoned house in the forest. There were already some people living there, and they gave us food. Although it was just a big bucket of noodles, there were no plates or cutlery. We were treated like we were pigs. But one good thing was that they helped us try to cross the border. They drove us really close to the border. Then we had to get out and cross this huge muddy ditch. The mud was right up to our chests. I was exhausted and honestly didn't think I'd make it across. One of the other guys helped me across, and I was so relieved when we climbed out on the other side. But then we were told there were police waiting nearby, and we had to turn back. We had to wade back through the ditch, and it took almost 2 hours because we were all dead tired. 3 months later, we got driven to a new place, a cowshed. It was horrible. We had to sleep amongst cows, and there was cow dung everywhere. Thank God we didn't have to wait long in the cowshed before a car came to pick us up to take us to the border. This time, we'd be crossing through the forest. It was winter, and the snow was so deep it came up to my knees. There was a Russian guy leading the way, but suddenly the police appeared, and the Russian ran off into the forest, leaving us frozen with no phone or compass or anything. We had to sleep in the forest that night, but I couldn't sleep a wink. I was frozen to the bone. As soon as the sun rose, we started running. I don't remember much from those next few days as I was so cold and hungry that I was almost delirious. We kept getting lost and going in circles, and only after 4 days did we find the highway. I couldn't believe it when our Russian guide appeared in the distance. I thought I was dreaming. He brought his car, and there were 14 of us who squeezed in. I was in the trunk with 2 other guys, and I really thought I'd be squashed to death. I don't know where we were going or how long it was going to take. I tried to hold my breath in case we ran out of oxygen in there. It was terrifying. After what felt like hours, we finally got to get out of the car. But it wasn't good news. We'd been pulled aside by the Russian border guard and they escorted us to the border post. I was so scared I'd be deported back to my country, so I just kept quiet. I didn't want to say anything in case we got in trouble. That first night we tried to escape, but it was so cold that we actually turned back and asked if we can come back in. I'd rather have been in the refugee camp than die out there in the freezing cold. I ended up staying 3 months in the Russian refugee camp, and it was absolute torture. That's how long it took to get all our papers sorted so that we could go home. We were locked in a tiny room with a TV that played Russian shows all day long. We were only allowed to whisper. If we spoke loudly, we got beaten up or fined. And there was even a suicide in the room next door to us because they couldn't take it anymore. It felt worse than a prison. During those 3 months, I'd often look out of the iron bars and just start crying. Why was I doing this to myself? After 3 months, we finally got to go home. After coming back home from Russia and celebrating the New Year holiday for 15 days, I came up with another plan. The only problem was how much I had to pay for this trip. But it would be worth it, I told myself. And anyway, I could pay it back after a few years working in the UK. This time, I entered Turkey. I stayed there for 2 days before joining a group of 30 women and children. They could be from Asia or Middle East countries, I don't know. When we arrived across the Bosphorus Strait, we were separated into 2 little boats. There we were, paddling out to sea on our way to Greece. The whole time I kept thinking we'd die. So many boats had sunk in the sea. What if we drowned or got attacked by sharks, I thought. And by some miracle, we made it to shore and began the next part of our dangerous journey. But I couldn't forget all the people we'd seen drowning. I wanted to help them, but our boat was so small. Those horrid memories will forever be imprinted in my brain.